Welcome, foolish mortals.
To Magical Maidens Growing Up Paranormal Vlogs. So I just wanted to say hello. I know that I haven't uploaded one since that Falling Angel video a couple of months ago. I usually upload paranormal videos around the fall in September, or if anything happens, and then I make a video, either a short one or a long one. So I just wanted to tell a little bit about my paranormal videos for those who are new to my channel. Those who are new to my channel and not familiar with them, haven't watched them yet, but haven't watched my paranormal vlogs. You might be just here for my jewelry, my jewelry tutorials, which I'm wearing a pair and a necklace that I made, or you might be here for my DIY crafts, my shorts, my ASMR, or everyday vlogs, or my reviews. Either way, I thought I should get in depth. I do a little on my welcomes when I update them. So what I wanted to say was that, so normally I'm decorated for Halloween because I do this in the fall. So my beach is still up, so I gave you a spooky ocean in the background. So it's a lot to change my background and get it nice and smooth. But so I really do like to do that in the fall. And right now it's the summer, it's July. But I wanted to just give an update about my channel. So I just wanted to update people that are new to my channel or not familiar with my paranormal vlogs. So I started these paranormal vlogs a while back now. Some of you know that I took off, I didn't delete, but I took off and removed, I should say, all my videos off of YouTube maybe about 2-3 years ago. I don't know, I lost track. Probably 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. I'm thinking probably 3 years ago, but then I luckily I saved them all to stick, but I didn't upload some of the old ones because originally when I started YouTube, it was simply to host videos so that I have a link to post it on my Facebook, and usually it was all about my cats and if I took a vacation. And then one day I did a jewelry tutorial just for my friends on Facebook, and so I put it there, but it got over, I don't know, I lost count, like 450,000 views. But you see, I removed all my videos, but then I put them all back. But what I did was I started mainly doing jewelry tutorials and my cats, and then after a while I added things. But then when I removed them all, I kind of restructured my channel a little better and made separate playlists for everything, and I added new playlists just to change it around. And I like to keep everything here rather than having 5 different channels for everything, because originally I wasn't sure, should I put my paranormal vlogs on here? Should I even do paranormal vlogs? So here's the thing about the paranormal vlogs. How they got started was, I have abilities. I have clairvoyance and clairaudience. Now, my clairaudience is stronger than my clairvoyance, but at one point it was stronger, because it probably would have been even better, all of it, if when I grew up, see, I grew up in the 70s, little kid, and yes, I'm that old. Yes, I'm that old. Grew up in the 70s, where people didn't talk about the paranormal much. You didn't have the internet, obviously. You didn't have shows about paranormal, really. Very little. You might have had some sci-fi movies, but they really didn't touch on the subject of supernatural things, of people with abilities, and, you know, that type of stuff. And so people really didn't talk about it. Everybody was more closed-minded back in those days. So as a little kid saying, look, I'm hearing voices, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing, you know, this, I'm experiencing that, everyone just said, oh, you're just a kid. You know, she's probably making it up, she's lying, or she's imagining these things. And this is kind of what I had to deal with growing up paranormal. See, my parents were both from Italy, and my father was very, very religious, Roman Catholic, extremely religious. My mother, not so much. My father didn't like talking about these things. My mother is where I got my abilities from, and from her side of the family. And she had them too. So, like, when I would tell her about the voices and the things that would happen, she'd be like, shh, don't tell your father. Because he would think I'm evil and it's evil and I shouldn't be hearing things. And he used to call the priest over. Because, you know, Roman Catholic, my father was so. See, my father was studying to be a priest before he met my mother. But then he met my mother and that was gone. And then, you know, they came to the US to live. So my father was very religious, didn't like it. Now, our house was built in the 50s for my parents. They picked it out, they picked the lot out. Before that, it was just like potato farms. It was Long Island, New York. It was just potato farms. Indian burial ground that I know of, it was just potato farms. So he picked a lot, and we had a 5-floor house built. My father was doing really well. He was an accountant, and he had many other things that he could do. So he was a white collar. So he earned a good living. We lived well. But he was very religious, and we even had an altar room downstairs, which kind of creeped me out sometimes, but I understand why. And I tell about that in most of my videos. I get into all that. And so one day I decided that it was time to share it. Now remember, I removed my videos, so these actually have been on for a longer period of time, because I removed them. They were probably off for about a year, and then I added everything back. So, and I made new ones. So these are actually pretty much going back when I lived in my apartment in upstate New York. So I'm thinking 6-7 years ago I started them, and maybe even 6 or 5 years ago. So I started them because I thought it was time to share it. And I felt an urge to share it because all those years I wasn't able to talk about it. People made fun of you. They thought you were lying. They thought you were crazy. They thought you were imagining things as a little kid. And when you got older, you just don't want to talk about it anymore, you know? Because only my friends and family knew about this, like close friends, and, you know, my husband, obviously. But it took me a while to break him in slowly with that. You know, I don't want to, hi, I'm clairaudient, and clairaudient, nice to meet you, you know. You don't want to spring that on somebody and start telling about the wacky things that happen. People think you're crazy. So people like me understand. You don't go telling the average Joe about this. But now, I mean, it's been a long time. People now know I have more of an open mind. Yeah, there's people with closed minds, still sheep, walking around, sleeping, not knowing anything, thinking the world is normal. That's what we call them, normies. Anyway, I don't want to get off track. So basically, I thought it was the time, and since I'm clairaudient and I also communicate, I also record, which I tell a story how I realized, and this would have saved me a lot of trouble when I was little if I could prove it. One day I decided after my cat Butterball died that I wanted to know if he was okay, and I asked, and I said, is he just on a lark, you know, I didn't know I can record it, okay? And I stopped really communicating and doing all things paranormal, just getting out of it because, you know, you want to feel like you're a normal person. And you know what? I am a normal person. Clairaudience and clairvoyant people are normal. It's the people that don't use their gifts, because we all have them, that are real humans, not NPCs. I don't know what they have, but they don't have that. They're not real humans. But we have abilities, okay? Because we come from Creator. There's a little piece of Creator inside all of us, Christ, God, whatever you want to call it. It's Creator, and we have that inside of us. So we do have abilities. A lot of them are dormant because the dark ones, the evil ones, made them dormant. They messed around with us so much over the centuries, and they ruined. They kind of wanted it, and they mess up your third eye and everything with your pineal gland, with fluoride in the water and in the toothpaste, all the crappy food, all the chemicals, all the low frequencies that they make, so that you don't get in touch with your abilities, and your abilities don't wake up. They don't want that. I wanted to share my experiences once for all, and so I communicated and I asked them if it was okay. So getting back to what I was saying, also my husband told me, yeah, why not? Go for it. And they said, now is the time. So I said, okay. So see, I also can record them, which I did know, like I was starting to say, I always get sidetracked, sorry about that. After my cat Butterball died, I was sitting on the couch one day. This was like maybe a few days later or a week later, and I was having coffee one morning, and I saw that you can use this online recorder, Vocaro. It's free to use, and you can save it as an MP3, you could email it. It's great. So I said, okay, let me do it. So I just, on a lark, I'm drinking coffee, really relaxed, not thinking of anything, and I just said, you know, just in case I thought maybe I can hear anything. Tuning into my clairaudience, or my clairvoyance, in a while. I kind of let it just go, because, you know, you want to feel a little normal, but I was normal all along. But society makes you feel not normal. Since I couldn't talk about it, what happened was I said, is he happy and at peace? Is my cat Butterball happy and at peace? And a voice said, yes, he is, in a whispering. And I didn't think nothing of it, because I drank my coffee and I went to listen, and I didn't even need my earphones, my earbuds. And I'm like, what? You know? And so I was like, I could record this. So with that, I started going back to being who I am, and I started communicating, and now I record when I do. I mean, I hear it without most of the time, but sometimes I like to do that. You can hear even more, because there's a lot of frequencies out there messing with us, and sometimes they can't get through. So with that, I started talking, and I communicated. I got in touch with my mother and father that had been dead for over 30 years, maybe 40, I don't know, it's been a long time. They died when I was young. And my mother started like talking, and at first she said, it's about time you figured it out, because I guess they knew all along. And then my mother started talking in Italian really fast, you know, like, buongiorno, buongiorno. My mother and father were saying, they're like, it's about time you figured this out. We were waiting for you. And then they were going on and on and on. And my mother, I'm like, slow down, slow down, slow down. Because they only talked Italian, but then they would talk English. But to each other all the time, they would just talk Italian. They didn't want me to know Italian. I only learned the curse words. Because this way they can have conversations without me knowing what they were saying, because I was a little kid. So what happened was, I'm like, slow down, remember to speak English, I don't know Italian. So they kind of laughed, they're like, oh, that's right, you know. And my mother has a strong Italian accent. My father, because he came here when he was little, didn't have an accent anymore, but my mother's accent was really thick, because she came to America when she was in her 20s, like 22 or 24, something like that. So she had a thick accent. And so anyway, that's how I started recording. Because I'm like, you mean I could have done this all along? They're like, yes, we were waiting for you to figure that out. And I was like, oh boy. I'm like, think about all the trouble that would have saved me. People wouldn't have called me crazy or all this other stuff if I could have just done that then. But then we didn't have online we didn't have it online. We didn't have internet. And our recorders were those Panasonic big ones, you know. Yeah, they were the reel-to-reel, and then the other ones. I think people remember in the 70s what we had. So, you know, It is what it is. Um, anyway, I just wanted to say that a lot of people wanted me to do more mud fossil and Tartaria videos, but I did a few, and I believe I put a lot of links below to really good channels, so you could do your further research on that. And I want to thank those who commented and thanked me under those for actually waking them up, because they had no clue. It's a process when you wake up, and I made a video about how you wake yourself up. Hidden in plain sight, and that there's things hidden in plain sight because they knew we were asleep, the dark ones. They knew we were asleep, they knew we wouldn't notice them, and they couldn't hide them. They hid a lot of stuff from us, and they destroyed a lot of stuff. But there was some things that were enormous that they couldn't hide. But since we were asleep, put in a trance, under spells, as you know, they constantly do spells. The English language is known for spells. That's why it's called spelling. They put spells when you watch your sports. Sports was created for distraction. Entertainment is distraction. You know, they make us work, make us all slaves, working all day long. When you're not working before that, you go into school all day long. Then you have the TV distracting you. So they made all these things so your mind would be occupied, you'd be distracted, and you wouldn't wake up from the trance. And all the black magic spells were in there to keep us in that, because they knew one day we'd wake up, and they were deathly afraid of us. They are afraid of us because we have a lot of power, and they were always afraid because they knew the spell would only last so long, and that's when we would wake up. That's why we have the Great Resets. So if you don't know about Great Resets, mud floods, Tartaria, and all that stuff, please go look it up. And mud fossils, definitely. Go look it up. Go look at those videos I have on this Paranormal Blogs playlist of the mud fossils and Tartaria and the Hidden in Plain Sight. In the Hidden in Plain Sight, I tell you how to wake up. I give you the trick, because you think you're awake, you know, but just because you have a slightly open mind or a little bit of an open mind, you have to wake up. If you don't see the things that are in front of you, there's a lot of people on different levels of waking up, okay? And even though I'm pretty high in waking up at the things that I know now, who knows, there could be much more that I don't know. And every day, you know, it's a discovery, and you got to keep researching. But I tell you how to wake up. Even if you think you're woke, you might not be awake. And when I say awake, I don't mean woke, like the crazy woke. I mean awake, okay? There's a difference. Woke is not awake. Woke is NPC, crazy, sleeping, whatever's going on over there. So don't get this too confused, okay? I don't do the woke thing. So I give you tips on how to wake yourself up so you can see more, because everything's right there. It kind of snaps you out of the matrix. So when you're out of the matrix, when you have to go in the matrix, let's say, what I mean by going back in the matrix is like watching regular TV, which I don't do. I have free streaming, and what I do is I pick what I want, and I usually watch old things without all the propaganda, even though there's little propaganda that you probably don't know. But I'm not going to get too much into that, but I just wanted to let you know that when you go back into the matrix, it's like watching regular TV with all the ads and all that, and you can see it all. They do it in the ads, they do their little spells, the propaganda's everywhere, and the cheesy shows and all that stuff. And when you're talking to people that aren't as awake as you, or on different levels, or aren't awake at all, you can notice it's almost as if they do not hear you. And they don't, because you're on a different frequency. The more you wake up, you change your vibration, so therefore you change your frequency. So, for instance, my sister lives next door. When talking to her, she knows about all these things because my husband and I have schooled her on all these things, trying to wake her up. I sent her articles and videos, and she's even been here watching some things to wake her up. And she's a sheeple that she has the news on, her and her husband, all day, and it's like lies, you know? It's programs to program you to believe the crap. So I tell her to stop watching that crap. She watches soap operas, come on now. She's very into the Matrix. And when I'm talking to her sometimes, telling her truths to wake her up, she almost doesn't hear me. She's like, she'll just start talking right over me, like she doesn't hear me at all, like I'm not even speaking. And she'll just start talking. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of saying something. She's like, oh, you were? And then I'll start again. Change the subject to another thing to wake her up. And she'll do the same thing. She'll just totally start with something else, something matrixy, and talk about that. And I'm like, for crap's sake, the other day we were in her pool. And I was trying to tell her something. And I was talking to her, and she just talks right over me and starts, look at that guy over there. He's so lazy. He doesn't cut the lawn. That poor wife of his has to cut the lawn. I'm like, who cares? Mind your own business, you know? And she's just like, and I went back and I'm talking to her, and she's like, look at that lady. She just was so concentrated on what's going on in the Matrix. And I'm like, oh my God, I was getting pissed off, and I was just like, ugh. You know what, I'm not even bothered. I tried 3 times. And this happens a lot. I'm trying to talk to her, and she'll just like glaze over or just have that fluoride stare. And then she'll just change the subject to something matrixy. That's how you know they're not awake. Try it. Because they're in a different frequency. So they see you. They don't hear you sometimes. They only hear what you're talking to their level of their vibration. But if it's a different frequency, they won't even hear you. I'm telling you. Then some people get triggered, and some can get violent when you're telling them truths. That's the Mr. Smith. And I go in more detail in that video, Hidden in Plain Sight. So watch it. It's here on my Paranormal One. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I did want to tell you about, and I go into this more in detail. I don't remember which episode of my paranormal blogs it was on, but this happened about 6-7 years ago when I lived in upstate New York. Actually, it started when I lived in Rochester, and then I moved, like after 3 years I moved to Webster, and that's all upstate New York. So I lived in Rochester, and I started in this apartment, and I started hearing at night when I'd be going to sleep or just about to drift off when you're still awake, I'd hear beeps and tones, you know, beeps and tones. It was different sounding beeps and different tones. And I thought that was weird. And I kept hearing that and hearing that. So anyway, it was a series of beeps and tones, and I was hearing this almost every night. And then I didn't pay much attention to it, because then I lived in an apartment where there was 1 entrance, and there was 4 apartments, 2 below, 2 upstairs. Now, I know the 2 on the bottom were vacant because they had old people and they went to hospice, and then there was only the guy next door. But then other people lived here, but one person didn't live there. It was 2 apartments downstairs. 1 couple lived there, but they went to bed early. The guy next door to us went to bed early. The other apartment was vacant because there were people that lived both in Florida, and then when they came up for the summer, they stayed in there. So they still paid for it, but they had an apartment there. So that was vacant for the whole winter. And they would come up when it was summer, because it's too hot in Florida. So anyway, they were there, but so no one was there, and it was very quiet. And this would happen between maybe 1 or 2 when I go to bed, or whenever I'd go to bed, I'd hear the beeps and tones. So what happened was, then we moved to an apartment in upstate New York that was a little more country, less busy like Rochester is. And it had it was a nice apartment. We had one of the best apartments in the whole building. It wasn't a big complex. It was a newer complex, and we faced the woods and the pond. And the pond was huge, and it was directly only a few feet away from our apartment. So we had the perfect views and everything. Everybody wanted our apartment. We got it. So that was our apartment. And now back then, it wasn't that full because it was kind of a new apartment. It wasn't really full. There was only on our side, because we were towards the back where it was peaceful. One side where our bedroom was the parking lot. Then you had the woods in the front with the pond, and so we had somebody next door to us, but there was a stairwell in between the apartments because then there was an apartment above us, and that was the stairwell. But the girl, it was in February, so the girl was on spring break and visiting her parents from college, and so it was vacant. There was nobody living in the apartment behind us, besides there was a whole utility room in between. And then we had just an older couple that was next door, but you had the stairwell separating. And then one other person on the second floor, but all the way towards the end. So there was only 3 cars in our parking lot. It was ours and 2 others, and that's it. And it was very quiet because we were having a snowstorm. There was already 5 feet of snow out there. It was coming down. So it was between 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was a weekend, and it was very, very quiet. The plows didn't even come out because the plows only came out during the week to plow the parking lot for people to go to work. So on the weekend, there was no plows. It would be the maintenance guy that would use his plow. And that wouldn't be till like 10 or 12 o'clock on a Sunday, in the day. So it was snowing, it was peaceful, it was very quiet, and back then my baby Rudy was still alive. That some of you might remember in the videos. He recently had to be sent to the Rainbow Bridge last month on June 12th, so you won't be hearing him on my videos or seeing him anymore. And I miss him very much. So he used to sleep with me. He was always with me, constantly, and he always slept with me. My other cat, Salem, we didn't have Magic yet. Salem would be in his room. He loved his room over there because it faced the pond, and he loved looking at the wildlife, and the neighborhood cats would be on the frozen pond, and he loved looking at the snow and all of it. So he used to sleep on the top tier of his cat tree, and Rudy would sleep with me. So one night, I was hearing those beeps and tones again. I've been hearing them, okay, for over a year now, almost 2 years. Not every night, but a lot of nights. So I was hearing beeps and tones, and I even checked everything to make sure, because a few nights before that, they were getting more and more. And I remember going through the drawer, taking all my old phones when you could take the battery out, making sure it wasn't that, making sure it wasn't my purifier, because when the filter gets, full and you don't clean it, it would beep, but it would just do a loud beep, not these beeps and tones. But I cleaned it anyway to make sure. And I checked everything. Nothing was making that. Even in the utility room next to us, nothing could make that beep, because I asked the maintenance guy, I said, do you have anything that beeps? Or he's like, no. And I even peeked in there, there was nothing. So what happened was, I'm laying in bed, my husband's sound asleep. Back then he used to fall asleep like that, and you couldn't wake him up. It would take a bomb to wake him up. It was hard for him to wake up. He would, good sound sleeper, and a fast one. And I would lay there, and I had my cat Rudy, and I was just drifting off, and I was hearing the beeps and tones. And then all of a sudden, I was sort of sleeping, and I heard a voice that woke me up say, now download. Well, I heard the beeps and tones, and then I heard, now downloading program into subject. Well, that woke me up, and Rudy sat up, and I sat up, and when I looked around, I'm like, who's downloading what into subject? No, you're not. Because I didn't know what the heck that was. So I got up, Rudy got up, I went to the bathroom, then I came out, Rudy followed me all over now. I looked out my bedroom window next to my bed, then there's another window next to my husband's bed, then there was another window, I looked in my closet, I walked out, checked on my cat Sam, looked out that window, went into the living room, checked in that window, looked out, walked around my kitchen, went into the utility closet where the laundry room is, went into the other bathroom, went into the dining area, went back to the bedroom. Rudy came back in. I laid back down. My husband's still sleeping. I'm listening, looking around. We lay back down. And now I'm still awake. I walked around, went to the bathroom, all 9 yards. So I'm laying there, just trying to figure out what that was. My cat Rudy was with me, and I'm trying to go to sleep, and I hear, "Sir, sir." She heard me. How's that possible? Now, it sounded like military. It sounded like an officer and then a superior. Because the other guy's voice was older and he was younger, going, "Sir, sir." Like he was really shocked and surprised that I can. How is she doing this? Subject can hear me. So the other voice, you can tell he came closer and he goes, "Change frequency." So he changed the frequency and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're not downloading anything to me." And my cat Rudy heard it too and sat up. My other cat didn't hear a thing. My husband was still sleeping. And he's like, sir, I changed the frequency. She still can hear me." And he's like, "How can she do that? How can she hear me?" And he's just like, abort subject. And I'm like, "What?" And then it went silent. So I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And I went to my husband. I'm like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear it?" He's like, What? You know? And I'm like, "Forget it. I'll tell you in the morning." So it always bugged me. I'm like, "What the hell was that?" After that, I didn't hear beeps and tones. And I was wondering, I'm like, what are they doing when I'm sleeping? And how many people are they doing this to? And why? And I get into that story more in detail in one of my paranormal vlogs. And I did ask somebody who is a psychic and who is a clairvoyant and clairaudient like me, and she said that it was something that was not good, but it's out of my system now. I transmuted it. So I still have to get more information. Like, it was a quick question thing online to her, and but I will email her further. She only got, she was going offline, so she could only give me that. But I want to know who they were, why they were doing that, what was the program, and why. She said it had something to do with my work. And I think it's because I was doing research and I was waking up. Because a lot of freaky things happened when I started to actually break out of the matrix and wake up to see the things that were hidden in plain sight. And I tell you about that in one of my videos. So you have to watch all my video vlogs, my paranormal vlogs, to see all these things that I'm telling you about. So if you haven't seen them, keep in mind, when I started watching them, I felt very uncomfortable about sharing my experience. It was a little goofy, a little silly. I didn't have the best camera or lighting for the first 2 or 3, but then it was in the fall when I was doing this and I was decorated for Halloween, and my birthday's around the time, so my husband bought me a ring light. He bought me a nice cam with the tripod. So they got better. And I made everything look all nice and spooky. I added special ghosty effects like I'm doing here. I had candles lit, and I tried to give it that nice atmosphere for fun. I acted a little silly and goofy. Sometimes I would sidetrack myself and laugh, so forgive me, but I got better towards going, once I felt comfortable in sharing this, that it was different. So, but I'm a goofy, silly type of person anyway. I don't want to be so serious like some people are, this was my experience, I'm not going to be all dramatic like that. I want to have fun. And that's the way I delivered it. So if you haven't seen my paranormal vlogs, please check them all out, 1 through now. And be sure that you check them all out, and remember to give a like and comment if you have any questions. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that if you aren't subscribed that you'll do that and click the notification bell and share them with anyone that you think might be interested. So thanks for watching, and remember, look forward to the fall, or maybe sooner when I communicate. I'm going to be communicating soon to find out how my cat Rudy is that passed. I've done a few sessions, but I haven't really listened because I'm upset about it, you know. So I had to be in the right frame of mind to communicate. So I hope that you will watch my vlogs if you haven't checked all my paranormal vlogs out, and I'll see you in my videos. And I'll see you in the fall for more. Bye.